this is going to be probably a pretty bold statement, but I have genuine authority. My life has changed. Like, you can look at me and you can look at the fruit of my life. Like, my favorite book asks the question of, can a poison tree produce good fruit? And the other way is, can a good tree produce poisoned fruit? And the answer is no, either way. So if you look at my life, I would think that it's just drastically changed from where it was. So I believe I have the genuine authority to speak on having been where I was, which was shockingly bad, to where I am now. And it's that story of genuine redemption. And obviously the story is still unfolding. And as long as there's breath in our lungs, there's still the opportunity to fall either way. But it's my mission to be as congruent as possible, because for me, it reflects on God.
Welcome to the Speaker Driven Business Podcast, where we are in a conversation with Jason Blyth. Jason is more than likely not a name that you know, and if you do know him, then it's more than likely that you are in our world in the Paid Speaker Accelerator program. I mentioned with an episode a few weeks ago with Kim Allen that we are going to start having conversations with our clients, with these super cool people that we have in our world. And this is not just to showcase how brilliant we all think we are, but to introduce you to the type of people, their heart and their character, and the people we get to hang out with. Jason has an incredible big lived experience story, the kind of big trauma background that would normally result in raw, real and trauma bonded audiences. And we've worked with him very deliberately since colliding into our world in March. We've worked with him very deliberately to be able to craft and hone so that the message is the center of his speech and not the big lived experience. It's a powerful speech. He has incredible insights and wisdom and a way of expressing himself that lands it straight into your heart. He is not yet a household name, but I have no doubt that he will be. And until he is, I am thrilled to be able to introduce you to client, program member, friend and colleague, Jason Blyth. Welcome back to the Speaker Driven Business Podcast. And this I'm so excited about because it is the second of our conversations with some of the super cool people who hang out in our world, otherwise apparently known as clients, but literally super cool people that we have in our world. I'd love to welcome Jason Blyth to the podcast. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with this conversation because obviously behind the scenes, audience don't know you yet. We've got to know each other a little bit, so I cannot wait. But I do need to start off with, I know where you are. Where in the world are you for those listening along?
Well, I'm an import to Australia. I live in Sydney here. I'm originally from New Zealand, but live in Sydney with my wife, Maddie, our 4-year-old son, Zion, and our cat and our dog. So that's where I am right at the moment.
Amazing, amazing. So at home, relax and chill, which is a good thing.
Totally.
And we do accept imports, so we're okay with that. So I want to have a conversation with you today about, you have a big lived experience story, so I want to kind of unpack that a little bit. But I also want to start with, why did you, or how did you land in our world? So what brought you into our world and what was it you were looking for?
Oh gosh, it was so random. So one of your clients from last year that did the Paid Speaker Accelerator, a friend of mine who I've worked with for a few years, I was doing a presentation at the start of this year around February, March, and I'd reached out to him because I'd known that he was in your world. I didn't know you at the time, but I just asked him for some advice around some structure for writing a keynote, and he sent me your podcast, and I basically just binged it for like 2 or 3 weeks and applied a bit of the stuff that I could to it. I had a pretty successful little presentation, which was online, and then I spoke to him a little bit about the difference between the Speak More Collective and Paid Speaker Accelerator, and then I had a conversation with you. But yeah, it's crazy to me that I only came into your world in March, like consuming this podcast, and then here I am, like 6 months later. Yeah, it's weird. It's really strange. So that's how I came into it. But really what I was looking for was, I know I've got a big story, and what really resonated for me with you, Jack, was when I was listening to you. You obviously touch on a bit about your history, like just touch on it. And for me, I've always, well, recently isn't always, known there's a responsibility in being very careful in the way that we deliver our lived experience stories. And one of the things that you said often was that we do need to take care so that we're not trauma bonding or bringing people to a bad place. And yeah, that was something for me. I wanted that responsibility to come through because I do have a particularly big story, and I do also feel a responsibility to keep people safe with that and be able to bring them out of the darkness and to somewhere they can take away the message and the light out of it.
Yeah, incredible. And it is a really big story. And without giving away your keynote as such, because a lot of your stories like lace into your keynote, but what is it about this lived experience story that you hold that has driven you towards speaking and communicating?
It's the personal overcoming that is really the message. I spent my entire life believing that someone else would save me, some kind of authority system, some government agency, some person would come in and step in and change my life for me. And I essentially gave away the authorship of my life. And I speak a lot about reclaiming the pen. This is like a metaphor I use through my keynote, but it's something I use a lot. And I share a few stories about that, but that essentially is what it is the power for us to be able to re-author our life. For the majority of my life, I thought that my life was predetermined, like my destination was set and I couldn't do anything to change it. But at some point, when I reached my absolute rock bottom climax, like it was destruction at its absolute peak, something in me just knew that if I carried on the path that I would either end up in prison or dead. And all that was left was the option to either continue that way or to change. And that was really the catalyst for me. And man, it's one of these things where I understand now that none of all of that hardship was actually there to destroy any of us. It's the formation for something that we're to go through, and pain for me is a catalyst to something far, far greater, and actually becomes the gift that we have to then help heal humanity.
I've always loved your approach to this and that perspective of that healing of humanity. What was it though? Like a lot of people have big experience and they have an incredible redemption story. What was it for you that sparked that you should speak about this, that you should actually make impact, create impact at scale? Like, was there a particular point? Was it a growing knowing? But what was it that really sparked? Because it's on one hand, it's really vulnerable. On the other hand, it's incredibly powerful. But it's also a risk. It's being vulnerable on stage at scale. So what was it that sparked that this was your calling?
It's been a revealing through the journey for me. As you know, I have a really strong faith. I haven't always been walking in that, but this is part of my redemption story. And for me, it's the knowing that I've been given this unbelievable story that starts well before even I was born. And God had to perform 2 miracles for me to even be alive, like genuine miracles. So first of all, I've got the story, and then as I've gone along my journey, I realised that I have the gift to be able to speak as well. So to me, it's about harnessing the gifts that we've been given. And to me, for me personally, this is the ultimate redemption story of taking something that was set for destruction and then turning it into something beautiful to be able to hopefully inspire other people. But speaking for me, I'm realising, I don't know exactly how far this goes, but speaking for me in the capacity that I am at the moment, I understand is only a stepping stone. So I was failed by these systems that were supposed to protect children. And I've discovered that my mission really is to try and do something to change the world for children, to protect the most vulnerable, because they're going to be our future generations. So for me at the moment, speaking is how I take those steps to put myself into positions where people can help me on my mission, and I can learn what that specifically looks like too. So yeah, it was a slow unveiling, and just calling to step into something that's terrifying, because I don't like it. I hate talking about myself so much, but I know people are fascinated by my story, and it's like this heavy burden in a way.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah.
Yeah, that revelation or that understanding that here to help the children, Because that was language I started to hear come through from you in the last couple of months. So when did that actually start to really emerge? When did that crystallize for you?
It was something that I always knew was going to be part of my mission, but somehow I'd kind of compartmentalized keynote speaking in this overall mission. And for me, actually, it all culminated and made perfect sense when we were at TBOS at your conference. And we were obviously coming to understand more about the specific mission that we had and who we serve and how and what we do. And as I was going through that process, and Courtney was there, obviously with her massive mission, and I was just really inspired by that. And I realized that they don't have to be compartmentalized. They can work in tandem together at the same time. This, keynote speaking and speaking in the way that I am at the moment is how it looks at the moment. And as I take steps along the journey, the revealing of this more movement type thing will happen. But I've always had this within me. I've done heaps of street preaching, and I'm a pretty vocal person. I've done lots of music and all that kind of stuff. So I've always been someone that kind of shines a light. I just used to shine a dark, destructive light, and now hopefully it's not so dark and destructive.
Yeah, well, I think power is equal in either direction, right? Like, it can be a power used for good. If you turn it to destruction, it's just as powerful in the opposite direction. And I really love the way that you did this. One of the things that I kind of want to speak into is this idea that you bring through the keynote. And I do love the fact that you talk about the mission and the keynote are now colliding, because that's actually a perfect world, right? But what is the core of your message? Like, yes, it's about the power, and yes, it's about redemption, but what is the core of it that you've been building to, I guess, unleash on people?
It's multifaceted, but fundamentally the main principal tenet of it is the power of choice. So really, I shaped the whole keynote around the fact that every hero, every superhero, and every supervillain has an origin story of pain. It's just the path they choose, right? It becomes a choice. And the drive of the pain either spurs these heroes on to fight for justice and righteousness, to fight for a better world, or it poisons them to the point where they then fight to destroy and watch the world burn. And like you just literally said, the power that comes through this mission can be used in one of two directions. And it's just the way that we channel it. And if we want to make the world a better place, we have to start with ourselves. For any genuine hero to have real authority, they have to first change themselves. Otherwise, they don't have the world will become a mess if their life is a mess. I think that's kind of what we see on almost a universal scale in the world here today in a big lot of ways. But yeah, that's fundamentally it, that we hold the power to author our own story. No matter what happened in the past, we can choose our future.
So when you look at that at the moment, while we're observing politically, geopolitically, socially around the world, and it seems a little bit crazy at the moment, no matter who you are, and you think about this, the power, our power to choose, the darkness versus the light. What is it? What's the myth out there that you actually want to blow apart?
That we don't have the power to be able to influence the world, but from our own way. I think we live in a world now which is so influencer heavy, and I don't think people think that they can impact in their own way unless they have to do something massive, right? And it almost feels like we're paralyzed to be able to do anything. I think that's kind of what I'm taking away from the way that I see people in this world, is that they don't feel that because their mission maybe isn't massive or huge or whatever, that there's almost no point in doing anything. So people do become paralyzed, and we live in a world of fear as well, which really puts people down into this place where they don't feel like they have any kind of power to change things. So I believe there's a big lot of stuff that people can do just from introspectively looking at what they can do with their own life and then taking steps to be able to move and change from there.
So why does this message matter? I mean, you've touched on why it matters at the moment, but there's an urgency to it. Why you? Why are you the person to actually get people to believe in the power of choice for themselves? Their intrinsic power. Why you?
Okay, look, this is going to be probably a pretty bold statement, but I have genuine authority. My life has changed. Like, you can look at me and you can look at the fruit of my life. Like, my favorite book asks the question of, can a poison tree produce good fruit? And the other way is, can a good tree produce poisoned fruit? And the answer is no, either way. So if you look at my life, I would think that it's just drastically changed from where it was. So I believe I have the genuine authority to speak on having been where I was, which was shockingly bad, to where I am now. And it's that story of genuine redemption. And obviously the story is still unfolding. And as long as there's breath in our lungs, there's still the opportunity to fall either way. But it's my mission to be as congruent as possible, because for me, it reflects on God. So I have this insane drive to make sure that I'm as congruent as possible. And there's no chink in my armor that people can look and go, yeah, but you're cheating on your wife, or, whatever, or like you're doing the dodgy behind the scenes. So that for me, I'm just gonna claim it. Like, I'm trying to live as authentically as possible in a way that actually shines a light, to be a trailblazer for people to say, man, if you can look at what I've come from, just you can do it. You absolutely can do it too.
Yeah. When you came into our world and when we had those conversations, and it was fast and it was great. Thanks to Michael if he's listening, because he does listen to this podcast. When you came in, one of the things I said to you straight up was, you're going to have to learn how to tell this story not as testimony on a church platform. With that in mind, what has been the biggest learning curve for you in this process, coming from where raw testimony is enough, into positioning what you have to bring to the world in a way that the world's going to consume it? What's been the biggest thing you've had to learn along that process?
There's a couple of things. It's really choosing a message fundamentally that you can hammer and hammer and hammer and hammer. Sticking in a lane, like picking a lane and sticking in it. And this is the power of choice for me. Obviously, there's like these slight nuances that thread through it about pain and about authorship of our own life. But fundamentally, this is the message. You have to choose a lane, stick in it. And then also not blasting your audience out of the water with overwhelming amounts of information. Like, you obviously speak a lot about how once an audience gets too much information chucked at them, they'll throw it all away because they literally can't cope. And that's the risk with something like my story, is it's so deep, so layered, there's so much to share. And like you say, right, give them the best of you, not all of you. So it's those, yeah.
Yeah, and in learning how to do that, what's been the most surprising thing for you?
Discovering this, like being able to stick to the structure and believing in the process of that, right? Like, it really just repeating that same message. For me, it's really solidified for me the true heart of my message, the real gold in it. Because I can speak on a lot of different things, and I do. There's a lot of different areas that I can speak on just because of the type of life that I lived. I've been an international athlete, I've been an international recording artist at different phases of my life, but really choosing the most powerful message for now to curate and then deliver to the world until probably we're black and blue and over it, because it's got to get through.
Oh, you will be black and blue and over it.
Yeah.
That's guaranteed.
So just hammering that, finding first of all that one message, because I'm so clear now. I'm so clear. Like, if I go to places and people go, what do you do or what do you talk on? I go, this is it. And I think that there's power in that, because people can feel the magnetic nature of when you're so impassioned by your message. It just smashes people and they like, whoa, okay, full on.
Yeah, full on. But they also respond, don't they? It's like,
yeah, of course.
They really lean in with that. What's the biggest challenge that you've had? And this may dig into some of your story, but like looking at your entire life, what has been the biggest moment of challenge for you?
Stepping into this, as I said, touched on just before, I don't like talking about myself. All my life I've been made to feel worthless and like my voice has been silenced. From literally my first psychology appointment, I was 2 years old. And between 2 and 15, I saw about 20 different clinicians. I begged for help. I asked for help. It's all in my mental health records, but no one ever took me away. So I first learned that people couldn't be trusted. Then I learned that I couldn't be trusted. I couldn't even trust myself.
Oh.
So through this process, it's, what it's like when you go through severe trauma or those sorts of things, you lose touch with what's actually reality. So it's about learning to actually trust that I have a message, that I've been given a gift, and what I believe is from God to be able to send out into the world. So it's about learning to trust in that, having the confidence to rewire every fiber of my being that tells me to shut up and to stay quiet. And I also know that because I've got a big mouth and a big story, and because of the mission that I'm choosing to go down, it's not going to make a whole lot of friends along the way too, right?
No, truth-telling rarely does.
Exactly. So if I look forward, there's elements that are quite terrifying about it, but like on the hero's journey, I'm not saying I'm the hero, but like on the hero's journey, it's the facing the dragon in the dark cave. And this for me is the next step along the journey for me of my journey of overcoming my past and the shadow and the inner voice that says, shut up, stay quiet, don't talk. That is absolutely, I think probably for all of us, probably the hardest thing is overcoming our own inner demons, but especially for me because of my background.
So with your background, because that's similar, you touched on as we opened in the podcast, I obviously touched on I have that big trauma background as well. So for me, the only way back was to shut up, right? So I was the opposite. I was always screaming and then worked out if I shut up, I was allowed back into society. And so regaining my voice was hard. We're not alone in that experience, like believing that we shouldn't speak up for whatever reason. What would you say to people who are still in the being bound by that sensation that they shouldn't speak, that they shouldn't speak up? What would you say? Because it's not enough just to say, just speak. From your heart, what would you say to people who are dealing with these demons that literally wrap their voice and hold it captive?
Oh, man, it is a really hard one because with so much of the stuff there, this goes into conversations around mental health and not everything that we say is always conducive to growth or healing, right? And this is kind of what I was touching on before as well, is that we run the risk of being able to bring people into a bad world and say things as well that we probably shouldn't be saying. So there needs to be elements of wisdom that come into what we share and when and to who and how. It's so complex. And one of the things that I really don't like about the Christian world, as an example at the moment, and this is specifically relating to what you're asking me, is that we live in a world now which has to be, obviously the Christian world is all about testimonies and testimonials and sharing your story, but it's like they need to be bigger and more extreme and more sensationalist to catch people's ear in this world that we live in now with insane video games and movies. Like, to capture people's attention, it almost needs to be insanely sensationalist. And this is part of the risk. So I think for people that are going through these is that they need to find people they can really trust, to be able to, people that they can trust, that they know are in a good mental space, that they can learn to be coached by. If you, like for me, I couldn't trust my own inner voice. And because I didn't trust other people, slowly over time, I had to find people that I could trust to help me work out where I was right and where I was wrong, to help me recalibrate my compass. Because I thought my compass in some ways was pointing me north, but it turns out it was pointing me south the whole time, right? So I needed it recalibrated by people in my world that I could learn to trust, that had my best interests at heart. And through that process, I've slowly, rather than just shouting, learned to open my mouth in different environments. And as that's happened, I've learned that I believe I've been given a lot of wisdom because of the lived experience that I've gone through. I know how and when to open my mouth, but it took a long time.
I'm really grateful for that acknowledgement on a whole range of levels. Like, there's sensationalism, as you said, with Christian and testimony. There's also the charitable fundraisers, which I've dug into on a previous episode, and the trauma bonding of audiences. But I also have this core belief that until somebody can get that first voice out, and that first voice is quite often angry. I'm curious whether yours was. That first voice is fiery and angry. And so people will say what you think and say what you feel and speak your truth. But the minute it comes out as fiery and angry, they hit a wall, right? So you told me to speak. I spoke in the only way I know how, which is anger. And now you're telling me to shut up again. So walk us through your perspective on that, because I think the first voice is quite often fiery, quite often angry, quite often not conducive. And we have to allow space for that and a pathway back. So walk me through your thoughts as I say that.
Yeah, so when you're talking about speaking, I'm just going to go from the narrative of how we present ourselves to the world. And so for me, I left home at 15, dropped out of school at 16. became very, very, very destructive. And because I'd grown up in this environment where I was unloved and rejected, I sought for the whole world to love me. And I thought that was going to fix my problems. This isn't conscious, obviously. This is just the way that it manifested to the world. Yeah. And so I went into music, and this was my initial path. So this was my stage, my early time on stage, presenting myself to the world. And my music was hugely, hugely destructive. It was so destructive. Music for me was an opportunity to do and say whatever I wanted to do under the guise of art, right? And
and creativity.
Really, exactly. And pretty much no one's going to say much. So I was so obscene. But long story short, I ended up, recording music in Hollywood, and like going along that path was I was like this close to like cracking it over there. And I'm so glad that it didn't happen, because again, I know it was God's hand on my life. I would have ended up in a bad place. But from that stage, this is going to take a very dark turn. I actually legitimately went into like satanic cults and stuff. And this was part of my journey because I was so angry. And I realized that I was creating art to destroy. So I would create music to try and pull people into hell with me. And this was so dark and so destructive. So this was the way that I was speaking, like presenting myself to the world early on. And I pretty much had this inside mentality that was like, if you want a bad kid, like I believe God created me to destroy me. I was like, if you want a bad kid, I'll give you the worst. So yeah, it was all about how I could create to infect other people with rage and to tap into this unhealthiness that's inside all of us. And it was so dark, for real. Yeah, absolutely. And this is why the swing is so big the other way too. And this is why the story for me of the power of choice and the hero versus villain fight in all of us, there's obviously different ranges. It's fascinating to me.
I find it fascinating as well. And one of the things that just occurred to me, like I obviously know the story in your keynote. I know that there is a moment where you make a choice. At what point did you recognize, like there's a moment of making a choice that things need to change, right? But at what point did you actually really understand the depth of the rage and the darkness that had a hold of you? Because quite often it's not at that point of change. That's just like, I need things to change. When were you able to stare in the mirror and see the depth of that rage and that darkness?
It happened in Revelations, but for me, it happened specifically as I was going through more and more initiations into this cult that I was in. And there was something in me that was screaming to stop. It was like, don't carry on. And I was pushing. And I knew this was like a spiritual thing. Like I knew that at a certain point, I would almost be unredeemable. And I was getting closer to the sage inside where this conscience, my spirit, God, whatever, was like, you have to stop. And I pushed to the point where I literally started to go insane. And it got to the point where like I knew that I was essentially going to be someone that was going to create darkness on this earth. And that's what I was working to do. But it got to the point where I had to break. Like my rock bottom had to be so extreme. I was one of those ones that could not learn the lesson. So right before my breaking point, I would wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd drink a litre of red wine until I could pass out. I'd wake up again at midday. I'd drink a second litre of red wine until I could pass out. And then I'd wake up again about 6 or 7 p.m. and I'd drink a third litre of red wine for the day until I could pass out until the next morning. And I did that for 2 months straight until I started to lose touch with reality. And this, like, I was literally going insane. Like I was insane and so sick, so unwell. And that, like, from this point, I ended up in the psych ward, stabilization unit, and then in rehab. And it was just bad. It was so bad.
Yeah, and I'm smiling, but I feel like I shouldn't be. But I'm also smiling because I'm looking at you now, right? So for those actually listening to the audio, go watch the video because I love this story. What was the resistance points you hit on the way out, though? Because it's all well and good to talk about power of choice and choosing your destiny and darkness versus light. What were the resistance points that you started to pull out and shift towards this different version of you? So it wouldn't have just been a straight arc out, right? Just a straight arc. So where did you hit resistance, either in your environment, the people around you, yourself? Where were those points of resistance as you started to shift to the light instead of the dark?
Look, for me, so like I ended up in rehab, and at that stage was when I'd always wanted to read the Bible, and then at that stage I was like, I was in the dodgiest rehab in Sydney. I was housed with 35 guys, all of which had been paroled there as part of their release from prison. And
great place to land.
Yeah. It was rough because I had to pay for it myself. I'm a Kiwi, so I couldn't get Centrelink, so I was paying for this. That's all I could afford. So I was in this place that was basically like prison, and I just wanted to not be around these guys. And so I spent a lot of time reading the Bible, and I also spent a lot of time in AA and NA meetings. And I just knew I had to change. But as I came out, one of the big things that stuck in my head, just some of those simple as terms from AA and stuff, was like, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And that was just one that just like stuck in my head. It was like the right quote at the right time. And as I came out as well, I understood that I'd need to change the people in my life, the places and the things, right? Like those are just classic sort of like addiction terminology. And one of the big things for me was music. That was one of the things that was pulling me into this dark world. So I had to give it up. Like I haven't done music again since. Still, I'm such a highly creative person, and one day I'd love to do music again, but it's just, this for me is a creative outlet. Producing video content and that kind of stuff that I do is the way
which you
that
do
I
really
get to.
well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's because of all the experience. But again, I truly believe, having lived the life that I have, that everything that was forming me that could either be used for darkness could then I just can repackage it and use it for light. None of it was wasted. It was all just preparation. I've had all the training that I'd need to go along this journey. I was just doing it in a destructive, wrong path. So that's fascinating for me, and that's why I say it feels like redemption. But yeah, the big thing was really I had to be very active about making sure that I removed myself from the bad influences in my life that I knew would pull me back. I just had to make those choices. I had to cut people off, had to stop doing certain things, had to stop smoking, had to stop doing drugs, I had to stop drinking. Obviously, I had to stop drinking. So I'm 7 years sober, and that hasn't been hard because I just made the choice. But yeah, it was just about making smart decisions day after day after day that accumulated and ended up in this result.
So as you came into our world, you were already speaking, already talking testimony style. What have you learned so far? Because we've still got a month to go. By the time this goes live, we'll be at the end. What have you learned so far that you're going to take with you forever from being amongst a bunch of people on the same journey as you are, learning how to do this game, learning how to turn just pure testimony into something that can reach arenas and the ages, so to speak? What is the one lesson you're going to take with you forever out of this?
Oh gosh, one lesson. Far out.
You can go a few if you want, but
yeah, look, for me personally, it's again a big part of this journey is about learning to trust my gut. And that was a big part of the reason why I came into your world, was because I knew I had a story to tell. I just needed help with shaping and coaching. And like you said to me, when we first spoke, you're like, I want to help shepherd this story and make sure that it's not being used for malicious intent or bad purposes. And that was important to me because I wanted it to be tended to in a way that then could do the world justice and the story justice. And my healing, I'm not healing from stages you talk about, but it's all a process of coming away and leaving the darkness behind. Every single step is a step away from that. And we can always fall back. So I'm well aware of those kinds of things. But that for me, this has been hugely formative for me personally in the sense of really solidifying my identity and the belief that I knew I had inside. And it's just really been like a big block in part of the superstructure that I'm trying to build as an edifice for my life. Yeah.
You mentioned several times over learning to trust yourself and learning to trust others again. I've watched you in this cohort and you've built formidable and incredible relationships. What changed in you to be able to do that?
It's just the proof that good people are out there and being able to have evidence that good people are out there. For most of my life, it was the evidence of the opposite. So I learned people couldn't be trusted. But in believing in the good, a big part of the faith is having faith, right? Faith in the good is out there. There's good people out there, that good wins and endures in the end. And a big part of my journey was believing in that and rewiring what I was fundamentally wired to believe. So along the way, small amounts of people have proven themselves to be truly trustworthy. And then that's allowed me to trust others and others and others. And the more I go along the journey, the more I realize just how much depth is out there. And the cohort is unbelievable. It's such an inspiring group of people. And truly, I'm honored to have been part of this. And to have all the awesome people's influence in this keynote too, because it's not just me or you, right? Like, it's all the influence and everyone's amazing suggestions. And
yeah, it's an incredible, I have said several times over, and we're going to lay down a challenge for 2026, but this 2025 class has been phenomenal. You are all incredible people in your own right, without even what we layer over the top of that. Has been incredible to watch. If you look at the ones around you in that cohort, from an observation perspective, not your own experience, but from an observation perspective, what do you think it's given those around you in the cohort?
Yeah, the same as me. I believe pretty much everyone came into this cohort probably not knowing that they were at a transition phase in their identity. And everyone's kind of in the same position I've described, this identity, this believing I had a message. And I think everyone's in exactly the same position. And you've just magnetically attracted all of these amazing people that are at the right place in their life, that are going from here to trying to do something completely different. Well, not completely different, but obviously using their life skills. And it's, just you've been able to groom and harness this identity, this deep identity, this longing for the truth of who everyone is, and allowing it to come out. That for me is, I think, been one of the most amazing things, is the metamorphosis and the evolution of people through this process.
Yeah, we've obviously got a day coming up where you're one of the speakers, but I also need to get better at capturing who you are on the way in, because the from and to is quite miraculous for all of you and has been incredibly witnessed to. Jason, as the speaker, not just as a human, but as the speaker, what is it you want to go out and do as you leave us? And no one ever leaves us. It's like the Hotel California. But as you leave the program, what's the immediate thing you want to get moving on? Like, what's going to light your fire as you move out of this?
One of the things that I've said when we've had discussions previously is that we're all at the place now where we've got a product, that we all have a product that could easily hit this market and do some damage, right? But it's going to be a self-belief thing. We've been given the product. It's like we all have to breathe life into it. So for me, it's about actually taking this belief, this new identity, the message, the passion, the boldness to go out there and go. Like, it's so easy for me to say, hey, this is why you should book Jacqueline, because she's a legend and she's an amazing speaker. But it's a different story to have to go out there and go, this is why I'm the man and you should book me.
Yeah, totally.
And I think this is why we probably don't have as many entrepreneurs as we could do in the world. It's easy to work for someone else, eh? So for me, it's at the stage of now, I'm really excited. I'm finalizing the last of my collateral to be able to, I don't have an excuse. I don't have excuses now. So the rubber's going to meet the road, and we're going to see who has the self-belief and the gusto and the willpower to go out there and make it happen. Otherwise, it's just a course that ends up being, we've got a beautiful keynote that sits in a cupboard locked away collecting dust, right?
I quite often get asked, what's the difference between those who make it and those who don't? Because not everyone makes it. And even in this cohort, as brilliant as everyone is, there'll be reasons why not everyone actually makes it. And it's nothing to do with your product or your experience. And it's everything to do with your belief and your momentum, right? That grit and momentum together. And something that some of the keynotes that die inside the hearts of people who don't have quite enough self-belief, who don't put oxygen on, actually break my heart. Right? Everything that we develop that doesn't make it into market breaks my heart. And it is true. We did some work with Carmine Gallo, and he says all the time, all you need to do to become a speaker, once you have product from us, like he was talking about our products, you've got your product, you've got your positioning, just go and speak. And that's the most daunting part about it, because we're kind of in a cocoon right now, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a few high fives and a few achievements coming through, but we actually have to get out there. What is the actual ripple effect that you want to see moving out from Jason?
Look, I want to see people change their lives. I want to see, especially with young people, you know, like I have two avenues to attack. I have corporate to attack, and then I have my true passion project is the people that probably can't pay as much, and it's kids in disadvantaged areas. It's people in rehabs, it's people in juvie and people in prisons and that kind of thing. So I want to see people impacted and be able to see people's lives changed, and just to hear those victory stories of people going, man, thank you so much, because you came at the right time. And that's a big part of the stuff that's happened along the way already with the stuff that I've done in regards to like church type of things. It's the power of impact at just the right moment. I believe that's one of the ways that God speaks to people, is to put the right message in front of the right person at the right time. And I'm not ignorant to think that I'm going to go into a room and speak to everybody. I'm speaking to that one person to pull them out of the fire before they do something that they hopefully will never do, to reach them in that moment of desperation, to go, there is hope, just to give them breath for another day or another week or another month or another year, because things always get better. And again, we have the power to be able to change. So that's what I want to see. I want to see from a speaking perspective that. And then for me, when it comes to like my greater mission of wanting to change the world for children, I know that I just have to start this journey, because I've realized that it's altruistic to want to change the world for kids, but I actually don't know what that looks like. Like, I don't have a one solidified mission. Like Martin Luther King could go, we want civil rights, we want equal rights for everyone. I don't know what that looks like yet for kids. So as in one message, one thing that everyone can get behind. Like, it's all good to say we want to change the world for kids, but what does that look like in a practical way? So I need to be out in the marketplace, being able to be put in front of and having conversations with these types of decision makers to find out what the real problem is, which still seems like it's hidden out of my sight at the moment. But I'll learn that as I go along this journey, and then hopefully whatever that is, change it.
Change it all, please. Like, change every bit of it. What I love about that, though, is I think sometimes we get so hooked up on knowing the mission in its detail, whereas actually what is this purpose? It's your North Star. Your North Star is to change the world for children. The mission actually isn't clear yet. Does that make sense? Because the mission is, this is what we're doing. It's like you said, Martin Luther King, we want equal rights and equal people and all that sort of stuff, and so many things. So that is a mission, because you're clear, right? I've just recorded a podcast saying, be careful your pop cultural references, but I always smile because I think of the Blues Brothers, right? We're on a mission for God, and they're so clear what they've got to do to help the nurses and the nuns and the Sisters of Mercy. And it always makes me smile because I think about that level of conviction. That's a mission. It feels to me like your North Star is changing the world for children.
Yeah, and you're touching on it. So easy to get paralyzed and go, well, until I understand exactly what that is, I'm not going to start. And I just got to go, because I know that it's going to reveal itself as I go along the journey. And it's about, again, trusting the faith steps, the step in front. This is the step I have to take now. Then the next step will reveal itself, and then the next and the next. That's the journey, isn't it?
It is the journey. And I really love this, from a faith perspective, I really love this because an early mentor of mine from a spiritual perspective actually said to me, God can't meet you unless you're in motion. Right. And that's about getting into the market. And I'd always believed as well, and I've spoken about this a little, so many people get caught up in, well, what's the lesson in this when something goes wrong? Or until I know how I'm going to get the mission, I can't embark on the mission. But the mission and the lessons both don't reveal themselves until you're in motion. I'm going to suggest that understanding the lessons and the gift in your darkness and the destructiveness actually happened once you were moving in the direction of lightness. They didn't come from sitting and totally from sitting in reflection, did they? It was actually in the motion.
No, and like I said before, I wasn't in the right state to even recognize it anyway, right? Like my mind was so distorted and so warped, and that's why I said before, we need people around us that we can trust, because if we're in that state where we aren't in the best state mentally, then how do we actually get proper counsel and coaching from people? If our mind, like my mind was completely warped, how was I supposed to make rational, proper, right decisions? And it was the same thing with that, is that I was so whacked out and messed up that, of course it couldn't be revealed until I had a clearer state of mind much later on.
Yeah. packaging all these lessons up into what you're going to be doing next and where you're going to be moving next, what's the one piece of wisdom that you would love to drop on every single person who comes across you? What's that single pearl of wisdom from Jason?
I believe, because I have a faith, because I believe in God, because I believe the world was created, I believe that pain is a universal thing, right? It doesn't matter if we're alive today or 5,000 years ago, male or female, rich or poor, Japanese, African or Aussie. It doesn't matter. We all experience pain in our life. Whenever I see a universal law like that, it makes me ask, why? And if it's something that we all have to experience, my belief now, having lived the life that I have, was that pain was never designed to break us. It was always shaping us into what we could become. Like, we all know pressure makes diamonds, yeah? Like, without intense heat and pressure, diamonds wouldn't exist. But in the ancient cultures, two of the most valuable products was olive oil and wine. It wasn't the olives and the grapes, though, that were valuable. Their true worth was only revealed after they'd been crushed. And it's the same producing gold, right? Gold has to be heated up multiple times so all the impurities can be removed, has to be cooled down, heated again and again and again. Without hardship and tribulation and extreme heat and pressure, pure gold can't exist. And these are universal patterns. And most amazing people that have overcome phenomenal adversity and done amazingly huge things will always credit their adversity to being the thing that shaped them and their success. So to go back to answering your question very directly, it's about how we view pain. Is it something that's there to destroy us, or is it actually shaping the absolute power and gifts that we can then use to help heal ourselves and then the world?
Yeah, I love that, Jason. As we wrap out, we're meeting up in a year from now, a year from finishing Paid Speaker Accelerator. What are the wins on the board? What are we celebrating with you?
Look, full-time speaking. That for me would be, for first one, be able to do this full-time, to dedicate my time and energy specifically to this mission, to being able to put out your high-quality speech content as well online. But yeah, just being able to be sustainable and being able to have we've got a 4-month-old baby. I want to be able to have my wife not have to go back to work. It's really important for us. She wants to be at home raising our son Zion. So that for me would be ultimate tick.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll meet up in a year and we'll see whether or not we've been able to keep her from going back to work. Jason, I'm really looking forward to the impact you're having. I love that you're in our world. You bring a richness and a depth to it that is extraordinary. I'm forever grateful for Michael for actually connecting us. And it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jack.